Good morning, people. It's currently 3 degrees out in Saugerties, New York. It's a balmy Saturday morning. That's why you hear the heater cranked up behind me. It's got kind of yell over that. The mission today is to finish swapping parts over on the little Yanmar engines. Got to do the bell housing, the flywheel, the oil pan, and a couple of little miscellaneous things. And we got snow coming in on Monday, so I think if I get these done, I think what I'll do is try and clean up that disaster area there and get the machine inside before it gets buried under a foot of snow. I got the Smitty Max inside. I had to replace a water and fuel sensor on that, brand new. Put a brand new one in with a brand new filter last month, and it was no good, bad out of the box. So I'll put the old one back in. Always frustrating. And just a public service announcement, people, in this single-digit weather, if you're cold, they're cold. Bring them inside. All right, let's get to work. All right, one last look at this before I clean it up. That looks like a portion of the piston. You can see where the wrist pin had gone in. There's the bearing cap, which is, as I mentioned earlier, it's hilarious because it doesn't look like there's virtually no damage to that, which is hilarious considering the damage done to the rod. This I'll save. That's got to be hung up as decoration. And it looks like I might have some damage control here. It looks like I might have a crack in the pan there. Let me get that cleaned up and take a closer look at that. We might have to weld that up. So I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to yell over the heater again. Here's my thoughts on this. There's the crack in the oil pan. That oil pan is dented in. Got some bare spots here. I mean, don't get me wrong, when you throw a rod, it does some crazy stuff, but that oil pan is not dented out, which you would think a rod getting thrown into it would push the pan out. I'm wondering if something didn't get caught under this, a rock or something, which punctured the oil pan, which leaked all the oil, which caused the rod to throw. That's just my thought. What do you guys think? She ain't purty. We're gonna redo this out here. You guys can see that, but we got bubbles coming out right there, and this is just a real quick check, just sealing off the bottom of it. We got air coming out there, so we got to seal that up. Well, that's just going to about wrap it up for today. Got the oil pan all squared away. What I didn't show on camera is just I finessed that oil pickup. I mean, I welded that 3 times, pressure tested it each time, made sure it was rock solid. And then I always, just for a preventative measure, put a very thin coat of JB Weld around the welded area. And I heat it up with a heat gun, allows it to soak into what may or may not be any leftover pinholes. I mean, I pressure tested that pickup 3 times because that's important. Oil pan, I did the same thing, welded it on the inside and the outside, and then a very thin coat of heated JB Weld on either side of the weld. That's just a preventative thing. I'm pretty confident in my welding, although it's, you know, I'm no welder by any means, but I am confident in what I do. Thermostat is brand new. Dipstick tube is in there. That's bolted down. Starter is there. I'm going to leave the starter loose for now. Obviously, the oil pan is on. The only thing I have left to do at this point, besides put oil in it, is replace those all those heater hoses. I'm waiting on braided line, which should be here next week. So we're kind of at a standstill right now. So I'm going to drop this thing down on the dolly, and that'll be it short term. All right, so first obstacle for sure, we're going to have to move the fuel bowl with the filter in it. That is absolutely not going to fit next to the electrical panel. So the fuel filter is our first obstacle, laying right against the electrical panel, which I knew that was going to be tight. This whole side is going to be tight. I'm going to see if I relocate it up here. That's basically the area where it was on the other motor. This intake is different, so I can't hang it exactly the same way. But let's start by pulling that off of there. What we're going to try and do is mount it in this bolt hole right here, but it's got to come out a little bit. So this is exactly why I did not replace these lines as of yet, because I knew there was a chance I would be replacing them. And actually a brand new braided line for it. Here's our bracket that we bent. It's going to go something like that, which will put it in just about the same place that the other one was. Get a wrench on that. That's the other part of this whole mounting area. It's different. But we'll be able to possibly utilize those mounting holes there. We might have to make a bracket or two. All right. This isn't going in yet. We're just fitting. So when it comes back out to get painted and just to go over one last time, that's when I'll replace all these hoses. All right, take 3. I don't think there's any getting around that hydraulic neck, at least not being modified, if not replaced, the entire tank, as I mentioned earlier. Let's see. Well, surprisingly, there's no drain on that tank, so there's not a whole lot of fluid in it. I'm going to disconnect those two hoses. I got a drain bucket under there. It's going to have to, it'll come out of there somewhere. It's going to try and catch it on the way out, and then you just got two mounting bolts. So go ahead and get that thing out of there. Okay, so the hydraulic reservoir is out of the way. We're going to have to modify that. Got some fluid in the bottom draining out. In the meantime, it'll give me the opportunity to now test fit this motor and see what other modifications we may or may not have to make over here by the oil filter and fuel filter, and then also where the turbo is. All right, let me just show you what's going on in there. Unfortunately, here's what we got. That turbo is going to rest right on the back of the cab. It's not even going to rest on the back of the cab. It would be inside the cab, literally. Which means we're going to have to relocate it. I was hoping I wouldn't have to do that. The other option is eliminating the turbo, which would mean swapping intakes, swapping exhaust manifolds, and just going back to the original configuration, non-turbo. That doesn't sound like much fun. Let me pull this back out and put some thought into it here. But definitely not clearance for the turbo in its current configuration. All right, well, after much thought and consideration, I think I'm gonna, at least for now, scrap the turbo idea, which I hate doing that. I had come up with a plan, fabricating a plate and a pipe and using the original exhaust manifold, like bringing the turbo off of that exhaust port, utilizing this muffler. I'd come up with a whole concoction. These are not the same flange, just so you know. That flange there and that flange there are different. Otherwise, maybe it would have been a little bit easier, but of course, my other concern is I don't know in terms of fuel, timing, and pressure, how different the injector pumps are set up. Turbo versus non-turbo. Like for example, and I could be way off base. I'm not a big turbo guy, and I'm certainly not a diesel guy. I'm curious if I pull the turbo off of this and put the original intake and exhaust manifold on it, is this thing going to be rich as hell? Because does the turbo call for more fuel on this motor? So, and then am I getting into, you know, pump timing and all that other nonsense, which I'd rather not get into. Yeah. Maybe I'll give it maybe I'll overthink it a little bit more. Well, I think the answer is to swap the original stuff back over to the new motor and ditch the turbo idea for now. The biggest reason being is, you know, I'm putting this time and effort and energy into this this used and abused and clapped out little skid steer that, quite honestly, I don't even know if anything else functions on it. It is going to need a certain amount of work for it to be a fully functioning skid steer, besides putting the motor in. So I think I'm obviously the fun part is messing with the turbo, and could I fabricate up an adapter, and yeah, and that would be fun and cool, but in the interest of time, sanity, and what's reasonable for this machine, I'm going to swap the stock stuff over. I'm going to hang on to the turbo stuff. Damn it, that's disappointing. I'm making this decision under duress. Let the record show. All right, let's get to swapping. That intake gasket stayed stuck to the engine. I can't peel that off without destroying it. The other intake, the gasket stuck to the intake manifold, and can't destroy that. I didn't want to reuse them anyway. They're hard as a rock. And unfortunately, my engine gasket kit does not have an intake manifold gasket in it, which is the whole reason I ordered the kit, because originally I planned on swapping the intakes over. I got a little carried away, but the new gasket is on there. The new gasket. We're going to bolt her down, hook up the fuel lines, and we're back on our way. All right, there she is, back in factory trim. Yeah, we'll revisit that turbo at some point. There it is. I got all the parts in a box, all the lines, fittings, everything. assuming this thing turns out to be a halfway decent machine, I do want to put that turbo on there. I'll be able to fabricate up a mount, using this factory exhaust manifold, etc., etc. That'll be a fun project in the future. All right, I made a hell of a mess today, so I'm going to clean up here. Next video will be, obviously, I'll put the hydraulic reservoir back in. We're going to swing this thing into place and hopefully, with any luck, get it fired up. All right, people, that's it for now. Stay tuned for more. Smitty, out.